Free will is one of the most profound questions that has fascinated humanity for millennia. It centers on whether humans truly have the ability to make choices independently or if their lives are predetermined by external forces, such as fate, divine intervention, or the laws of nature. The debate over free will stretches across philosophy, science, and theology. But in religion, it holds a special place, often tied to moral responsibility, salvation, and the purpose of human existence. For centuries, religious scholars have grappled with the tension between human freedom and divine power. In many faiths, the belief in an omnipotent deity raises complex questions. If God is all-knowing and has a plan for everything, how can human beings have free will? Does this mean that our choices are already known or predetermined? And if so, does that undermine our responsibility for them? In this video, we will explore how three major world religions, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, address the concept of free will. Each offers unique perspectives, reflecting the different theological frameworks, cultural contexts, and philosophical traditions. These religions have debated whether free will is a gift from the divine, a responsibility tied to one's soul, or simply an illusion in the face of destiny. By examining free will in these three faiths, we can better understand how individuals from different cultures and beliefs make sense of their own agency, morality, and the meaning of life. We'll also touch on how each religion navigates the balance between divine authority and human choice, a balance that shapes not only personal faith but also broader religious practices and societal norms. From the Christian notion of sin and grace to the Islamic concept of qadar to Hindu teachings on karma and dharma, let's dive into this complex and timeless debate. Let's see how different religions interpret free will. Religions offer diverse interpretations of free will, often shaped by their underlying beliefs about the nature of the divine and humanity. In many traditions, free will is viewed as a vital aspect of human existence, as it allows individuals to make moral choices, choose a path toward spiritual fulfillment, and take responsibility for their actions. However, this concept is also intertwined with beliefs about divine sovereignty, predestination, and the soul's ultimate purpose. In Christianity, free will is central to the narrative of sin, redemption, and grace. According to traditional Christian thought, humans were created with the ability to choose between good and evil. This ability is exemplified in the biblical story of Adam and Eve, whose decision to disobey God's command leads to the fall and the introduction of sin into the world. However, Christian denominations differ in their interpretations. While some emphasize human freedom and moral responsibility, others, like Calvinists, argue that God has predestined certain individuals for salvation, limiting the scope of free will. In Islam, the concept of free will is closely tied to the idea of qadar, or divine preordinance. While God is believed to have full knowledge of the future and control over all events, humans are still held accountable for their choices. This creates a nuanced balance between fate and free will. Islamic scholars have long debated the degree of human freedom in the face of God's will, with some schools of thought emphasizing predestination and others advocating a more significant role for human agency. Hinduism presents a distinct perspective, with free will intricately linked to karma and dharma. Karma refers to the consequences of one's actions, which influence future experiences, while dharma refers to the moral duty one must fulfill in life. In this framework, free will exists within the boundaries of cosmic law, where individuals can shape the destiny through their choices but are also bound by the results of past actions. This variety of interpretations highlights how different religions grapple with the same fundamental question: how much control do we really have over our lives? 1. Christianity and free will. In Christian theology, free will is an essential aspect of understanding human nature, sin, and salvation. The concept is deeply tied to the biblical narrative of humanity's creation and fall, and it has been a subject of theological debate for centuries. At the heart of the Christian understanding of free will is the tension between human autonomy and divine sovereignty. One of the foundational Christian views on free will comes from St. Augustine of Hippo, who argued that humans were created with free will but that this freedom was corrupted by original sin, the sin committed by Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Augustine believed that before the fall, humanity had the capacity to choose between good and evil without internal conflict. However, after the fall, human nature became inclined toward sin, which severely limited the exercise of free will. According to Augustine, this inclination towards sin means that humans are unable to choose good without divine grace, a gift from God that restores the ability to act in accordance with His will. Another key theological concept related to free will in Christianity is the balance between divine omniscience and human freedom. Christianity teaches that God is omniscient, meaning He knows everything, including the future. This raises an important question. If God knows everything that will happen, including the choices individuals will make, does that mean human beings lack true freedom? Many Christian theologians, including Augustine, have argued that God's foreknowledge does not interfere with human free will. God knows what choices people will make, but this knowledge does not cause or determine those choices. Instead, humans remain morally responsible for their actions. One of the most significant debates within Christianity regarding free will centers on the doctrines of Calvinism and Arminianism. These two theological perspectives offer contrasting views on the relationship between free will and divine predestination. Calvinism, based on the teachings of John Calvin, emphasizes God's absolute sovereignty and the doctrine of predestination. Calvinists believe that God has predestined certain individuals for salvation and others for damnation, and that this choice is not based on anything the individual has done or will do. In this view, human free will is limited because, while people can make choices, their ultimate destiny is already determined by God's will. This perspective is rooted in a strong belief in God's omnipotence and the idea that salvation is an unearned gift, not something that can be achieved by human effort or decision. Arminianism, on the other hand, arose in response to Calvinism and is named after the theologian Jacobus Arminius. Arminians believe in conditional election, meaning that God's predestination is based on His foreknowledge of human choices. In this view, God knows who will accept or reject His grace, but He does not cause these decisions. Arminianism emphasizes human free will, arguing that individuals have the ability to accept or reject God's offer of salvation. This perspective seeks to maintain a balance between God's sovereignty and human responsibility. Both perspectives are grounded in Scripture, though they interpret key passages differently. Calvinists often cite verses like Romans 8:29-30, which speak of God predestining those He foreknew, to support their view. Arminians, on the other hand, emphasize passages like 1 Timothy 2:4, which states that God wants all people to be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth, suggesting that salvation is available to everyone but requires human cooperation. The tension between free will and divine predestination is also illustrated in the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. According to Genesis, God placed Adam and Eve in the garden and gave them the freedom to eat from any tree, except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Despite this command, they chose to eat the forbidden fruit, an act that is traditionally understood as the first exercise of human free will, and the first act of disobedience against God. This story is foundational to Christian theology because it highlights the dual themes of free will and moral responsibility. Adam and Eve were given the freedom to choose, but they also had to face the consequences of their choice, which brought sin and death into the world. In Christian thought, this narrative serves as a reminder that free will is not just a gift but also a responsibility. The ability to choose between good and evil comes with moral consequences, both in this life and in the afterlife. However, Christianity also teaches that through Christ, humans are offered redemption and grace, which can restore their ability to choose good and lead them toward eternal life with God. In summary, Christianity presents a complex and nuanced view of free will, balancing the ideas of human freedom, divine foreknowledge, and moral responsibility. While the debate between predestination and free will continues within different branches of Christianity, the central belief remains that humans are capable of making meaningful choices, even within the framework of divine sovereignty. Second, Islam and free will. In Islamic theology, the concept of free will is intricately linked to the nature of Allah's omnipotence and human responsibility. One of the key ideas in Islam is the belief in qadar, which refers to divine preordainment or predestination. According to Islamic teachings, Allah has knowledge of everything, past, present, and future, and His will ultimately governs the universe. This raises the question of how human beings, if they live in a universe controlled by divine will, can still be held responsible for their actions. The Quran emphasizes both divine omnipotence and human accountability. Muslims are taught that while Allah has predetermined all events, humans are endowed with the ability to make moral choices. This creates a balance between fate and free will that has been the subject of debate among Islamic scholars for centuries. The principle that Allah knows everything that will happen does not mean that humans are mere puppets of destiny. Instead, the Quran frequently underscores that humans will be judged on the Day of Judgment based on their actions and intentions, implying that they have the capacity to choose their path. A major theological debate in Islam revolves around how to reconcile Allah's knowledge and control of the future with human free will. This debate is often framed around two major schools of thought, the Ash'ari and Mu'tazila schools. The Ash'ari view tends to emphasize divine predestination, while the Mu'tazila uphold the notion that humans possess genuine free will, allowing them to be morally responsible for their actions. Islamic theology presents a variety of views on free will, particularly when it comes to the extent of Allah's control over human destiny and the nature of human choice. The Ash'ari school, which became dominant in Sunni Islam, advocates for a middle path that asserts Allah's absolute sovereignty over all events, including human actions, while still holding individuals accountable for the deeds. According to this school, Allah creates all actions, but humans acquire their actions by choosing them, a concept known as kasbi. This means that while every event in the universe is created by Allah, humans play a role in choosing the actions they will perform, thus preserving their moral responsibility. This view helps reconcile the belief in divine omnipotence with the idea that humans are agents capable of making moral decisions. The Mu'tazila school, on the other hand, emphasizes free will more strongly, arguing that human beings are fully responsible for their actions because they have the ability to act independently of Allah's will. The Mu'tazila rejected the idea that Allah creates human actions, insisting instead that humans possess the power to create their own deeds. This perspective aligns more with the concept of human agency, asserting that for justice to exist, individuals must have the freedom to choose between right and wrong. In this view, if Allah were to predestine all actions, it would undermine the moral responsibility upon which Islamic law, Sharia, is based. This theological divide can be seen as a reflection of deeper questions within Islam about the nature of justice, divine mercy, and human responsibility. The Ash'ari view tends to emphasize Allah's transcendence and control, while the Mu'tazila place a stronger emphasis on human accountability and the moral implications of free will. In the Quran, there are numerous references that address both divine predestination and human freedom. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah 2:286 says, Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear, which suggests that humans are given challenges and responsibilities they are capable of handling, implying an element of free choice. Conversely, Surah Al-Qamar 54:49 states, Indeed, all things we created with predestination, emphasizing Allah's control over all events. These verses reflect the dual nature of Islamic teaching on the subject. Allah's will is paramount, but humans are still expected to make choices and be responsible for them. The concept of qadar extends to both good and bad events in life. Muslims believe that trials and blessings are part of Allah's divine plan, and while humans cannot fully understand this plan, they are encouraged to exercise patience, sabr, and trust in Allah's wisdom. However, this does not negate human agency. Muslims are instructed to take responsibility for their actions and to strive for righteousness, knowing that Allah's mercy and justice will prevail in the end. A key example of free will in Islamic teaching is found in the story of Iblis, Satan, in the Quran. Iblis, who was originally a devout worshipper of Allah, refused to bow to Adam when commanded by Allah. This act of defiance was a conscious choice, one for which Iblis was held responsible and cast out of paradise. The story demonstrates that even beings created by Allah are endowed with the ability to make choices and face consequences, reinforcing the Islamic view that free will is part of human, and even angelic, existence. In summary, Islam teaches a delicate balance between divine predestination and human free will. While Allah's knowledge and will are absolute, humans are still believed to have the capacity to choose their actions and are held accountable for them in this life and the afterlife. The exact nature of this balance has been debated by Islamic scholars, but the core belief remains that free will is an integral part of human life, allowing for moral responsibility while still affirming Allah's ultimate control over the universe. Third, Hinduism and free will. In Hinduism, the concept of free will is intricately woven into the larger framework of karma and dharma. Karma refers to the law of cause and effect, where every action has consequences that affect one's future, while dharma denotes the moral duty or ethical path that one should follow in life. Together, these concepts shape the understanding of human agency and responsibility within the Hindu worldview. Hindu philosophy posits that individuals are born with a certain set of karmic influences based on their actions in previous lives, which shape their current circumstances. This implies that while individuals have the freedom to make choices in their current lives, those choices are influenced by the past actions. Thus, free will in Hinduism exists within a context where one must navigate the results of previous actions while also fulfilling the duties according to their social and cosmic responsibilities. Furthermore, Hinduism acknowledges the presence of various deities and cosmic forces that guide human behavior. While these divine entities may provide support, guidance, and even intervene in human affairs, individuals are ultimately responsible for their choices. This creates a complex relationship between divine influence and human free will, suggesting that while individuals can seek help from the divine, they still bear the responsibility for their actions. The interplay of free will, karma, and dharma in Hinduism has led to various interpretations and philosophical debates, particularly regarding the extent of human agency and the influence of destiny. Karma is central to the Hindu understanding of free will. According to this belief system, every action, thought, or intention generates karma, which accumulates over lifetimes. Positive actions lead to good karma, resulting in favorable circumstances, while negative actions create bad karma, leading to suffering or misfortune. This implies that individuals have the agency to shape their future through their actions, but they must also contend with the karmic repercussions of their past. Thus, free will in Hinduism is not an absolute freedom, it is intertwined with the consequences of one's previous choices. Dharma plays a crucial role in guiding the exercise of free will. Each individual has a unique dharma, which is influenced by factors such as caste, age, and gender. Fulfilling one's dharma is essential for maintaining social harmony and cosmic order. The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, a foundational text in Hindu philosophy, illustrate this concept through the dialogue between Lord Krishna and the warrior Arjuna. Arjuna grapples with his duty to fight in a war against his relatives and mentors. Krishna emphasizes the importance of performing one's duty, dharma, without attachment to the results, highlighting that true freedom comes from aligning one's actions with ethical and moral principles rather than acting solely based on personal desire. This perspective on free will also emphasizes the concept of samsara, or the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In Hindu belief, the soul, Atman, undergoes numerous lifetimes, and the choices made in each life impact future incarnations. This cyclical nature reinforces the idea that individuals have the opportunity to learn, grow, and evolve through their experiences. Free will is thus not just about making choices in a single lifetime but encompasses a broader spiritual journey. Hinduism also acknowledges the role of divine influence in human affairs. Deities such as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva represent various aspects of the divine and offer guidance and support to individuals seeking to fulfill their dharma. While individuals can pray for assistance, it is ultimately their responsibility to make choices that align with their moral duties. This balance between seeking divine guidance and exercising free will is crucial in understanding the Hindu approach to morality and spirituality. The concept of moksha, or liberation from the cycle of samsara, is closely linked to the exercise of free will. Achieving moksha requires individuals to transcend the desires and attachments, thereby exercising their free will in a way that aligns with spiritual truths. In this context, true freedom is not merely the ability to make choices but the realization of one's divine nature and the understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. The spiritual path often involves overcoming ignorance and understanding the deeper principles of karma and dharma, leading to liberation from the cycle of rebirth. In summary, Hinduism presents a nuanced understanding of free will, viewing it as a fundamental aspect of human existence that is intertwined with the principles of karma and dharma. While individuals possess the agency to make choices, those choices are influenced by past actions and must align with moral duties. The interplay of divine guidance and individual responsibility highlights the complexity of free will in Hindu thought, emphasizing that true freedom comes from understanding one's role in the cosmic order and striving for spiritual growth and liberation. Let's compare the approaches of this main relation to free will. Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism reveal both similarities and significant differences rooted in each religion's unique theological framework, cultural context, and philosophical traditions. In Christianity, free will is often framed within the context of sin, grace, and salvation. The dichotomy between Calvinism and Arminianism highlights the tension between divine predestination and human agency. Calvinism asserts that God's sovereignty dictates the fate of every individual, while Arminianism emphasizes that humans have the freedom to choose salvation or reject it. This debate reflects broader cultural attitudes toward individualism and moral responsibility, with a strong focus on personal accountability for one's choices. In Islam, the concept of free will is tied to the belief in qadar, or divine predestination. While Allah's omniscience governs all aspects of life, the emphasis on human accountability suggests that individuals are responsible for their actions. The contrasting views of the Ash'ari and Mu'tazila schools further illustrate this complexity, with the former stressing divine sovereignty and the latter advocating for genuine human freedom. This balance reflects Islamic culture's emphasis on justice and moral responsibility, where individuals are judged based on their intentions and actions. Hinduism presents a different approach, where free will is intricately linked to karma and dharma. The belief that one's past actions influence present circumstances emphasizes a cyclical view of life, where individuals have the agency to shape their future while being accountable for their past. This perspective aligns with the cultural notion of dharma as a guiding principle, reflecting a community-oriented approach to morality and responsibility. Cultural factors, philosophical traditions, and religious practices significantly influence these religions' stances on free will. For instance, the Western philosophical tradition's emphasis on individualism and personal agency has shaped Christian thought, while Islamic discussions on free will reflect the community's focus on justice and ethical conduct. Hinduism, with its emphasis on interconnectedness and cyclical existence, frames free will within a larger cosmic order. In summary, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism offer distinct yet overlapping perspectives on free will. Christianity grapples with the tension between divine sovereignty and human choice, particularly through the debates of Calvinism and Arminianism. Islam presents a nuanced view that balances divine predestination with individual accountability, emphasizing the importance of intentions and actions. Hinduism intertwines free will with karma and dharma, promoting a holistic understanding of individual agency within a cosmic framework. Across these belief systems, the concept of free will shapes human spirituality and morality by emphasizing the importance of personal choices and moral responsibility. Ultimately, while the interpretations may vary, the common thread lies in the acknowledgement that individuals are agents of the destiny, and their choices profoundly impact their spiritual journey and ethical conduct. This understanding fosters a deeper appreciation for the moral dimensions of free will, encouraging believers to act responsibly within the framework of their faith traditions.